All right, welcome to Free Thinker Radio. I'm Mike. I'm here with Derek. Glad
What's
to
up,
be here.
everybody?
All right, going to get into some music first. Get the show going. We're going to hear some So Soon the Truth. It's been a moment since we've heard them. Going to get into the song Familiar Violence, which you can hear out on their Bandcamp.
All right, check this out. We'll be right back. 90.1 KPFT Houston. See if we get this song playing for you.
Now I know
Welcome back to Freethinker Radio here on 90.1 KPFT Houston, where we bring you uncensored news beyond the left, beyond the right, beyond the mainstream, and
Music.
local music like that, So Soon the Truth from here in the Houston area. And of course, events, upcoming things. We take your phone calls at 713-526-5738.
Again,
And
slowly.
I'm here with Micah.
713-526-5738. All right, they say we never say it slow enough. I'd had to be
Now
slow
they
enough.
can't say it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we're glad to be here. Another episode of Freethinker Radio. We're not joined by our good friend Johnny, so things might not be as tight and right as they sometimes are, because he's a good help over here on the board, and he's also a welcome mind and voice on the show. So we miss you, Johnny, but not all that much. We're glad to be here.
Yep.
Thanks, KPFT, and thank you, audience. We got a good show coming to you today. All kinds of news. I know there's been things going on. We got out to things. I went to a Mayor Oil forum. That was entertaining.
Where was that at?
That was over in Garden Oaks. It was at Garden Oaks Montessori. I'm actually stalling a little bit while my computer starts, but
Well, tell me about that.
it was
that this
it was
week?
pretty interesting because it was on, I guess, Tuesday or something. I don't know, early this week. And I got out there. Everybody was there. Well, even one of the candidates that wasn't on the panel made it. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I forgot what is her name?
Demetria Smith.
Thank you. So Demetria Smith came there, and council member Boykins was up on the panel talking, and someone else had said hi to her, and so he said, I want to say hi to her also. And it was funny because she said, you were just going to look over me, and everybody laughed, almost like they believed her. And I thought that was kind of interesting because he'd been sitting up there talking about how, he always tells the truth and everything. So it was kind of funny because right after that, the pastor that was up there.
Oh, yeah, Kendall Baker, I think.
Kendall Baker, yeah, he's the one who shouted out to Demetria Smith, and then Boykin spoke, and it was kind of funny because the speech right before that, he talked about how honesty and all this stuff, but it was like some sort of implied thing there, because I do believe most of the audience believed that he would have passed her over and acted like he didn't see her over there. I don't know, but it was also entertaining because everybody had different numbers, and so many people were like slamming the mayor and slamming the numbers, and the mayor was just calling them liars, and just going in circles like that. And it's kind of entertaining to see how that unfolds. And unless you come equipped with the information, you're going to walk away with a whole bunch of questions. But I will say some of the fringe, or whatever you want to say, they had them set up that way. They had I guess you might consider the lamestream candidates in the middle, the ones that always focused on arguing with each other and not resolving anything.
What they call the top tier.
Oh, that makes them a top tier because they were just basically yelling at each other and stuff like that. But one guy, I forgot his name, but he'd been around the world, and he talked about a city manager situation, and that was pretty interesting. He kind of troubled the whole strong mayor system that we have, so that was interesting. And there were a lot more ideas there than just what these lamestream candidates were kind of slinging at each other. And I think because there's so many of them and they're like all at each other's throats like that it kind of makes the ideas stand out a little bit more peacefully on the edges there. So that was a good lesson in civics. And I saw the leader out there as well. They were interviewing people. So,
Cool.
So everybody
sounds like a good mix of actual local engagement, involvement, like you said, civics and politics and local
turnout.
Small media. That's cool.
It was a good turnout. They had to get extra chairs and turn the air on because people were about to riot.
Yeah, and when you talk about and I think we see this not just locally, but across the board, obviously, but when it comes to those main candidates, whether you're talking the Houston mayoral race or the presidential race, these folks are always happy to tell you, here are the 2 or 3 people you need to pay attention to, or here in this case, it's here are the 5 candidates that are running, and there are actually 12 candidates who are running now who are engaged in office. So
that's why I was so glad to get out to this thing because, I didn't have, obviously there was some selection because, as I said, Demetria Smith was excluded from the table.
Yeah.
But all the lamestream candidates were there as well as a few others, and that was pretty nice. Unlike what you see on a lot of the televised stuff, and I think it should be like that. At least on the local, people ought to be able to get out there and see who's really available.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I'm glad you went to that. There was actually, I saw there was another mayoral forum this morning at a retirement community. So they're happening all over town. If you're interested in being engaged in that way, I would definitely keep an eye out for one. Or if you've got a particular group or issue that you're involved with, maybe get one together and organize some folks. There's actually another event going on tomorrow that is a forum in the sense of it's kind of, I think they invited all the candidates, and a couple of the mayoral candidates will be there. But it's also just a forum, kind of discussion, educational session, I guess you could say, about health freedom. It's called Houston's Health Freedom Forum, and apparently it's the first annual, so I guess there's going to be plans to do another. First annual Houston Health Freedom Forum, and it says, in the spirit of health, liberty, and health forum, we gather together to discuss these ideas. And that's generally described as the idea for, it's something that we've talked about quite a bit here on this show, so I think this is why it's cool to see it happening. The idea that individuals must have liberty and freedom in their health and medical choices, and this obviously is something that stands against the idea of mandatory medication of any kind, you know, whether that means, hey, everybody must take Tylenol, or everybody must drink
smoke weed,
fluoridated water, or smoke weed, dude, or
that's wrong,
take
man.
this vaccine.
I'm not smoking your weed.
Then that would go against, you know, what is considered health freedom.
Yeah, because you should be free not to smoke weed if you want.
Exactly, or to maybe not vaccinate.
What about not vaccinating?
We'll talk more about that in the show. But this event,
sorry.
this event, though, let me just get into this event. I'll just tell you a little bit about it, but if you look on Facebook, Houston Health Freedom Forum, it should pop up. It's going to be hosted at the Houston Yoga and Ayurvedic Wellness Center, which is towards the Cypress area off Kluge Road, Kluge. It's tomorrow evening from 5 to 8 p.m. Tomorrow evening. That's Saturday. And you can hear from Sharon Kapp, who is the founder of the Yoga and Ayurvedic Wellness Center. She'll be talking about Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Ayurvedic medicine, and maybe some of the differences between the Western traditional medicine that most of us, I would say, in the United States are accustomed to. And so that'll be a talk from her. Then there'll be a talk from Dr. Serge Gregor, I think is how you say his last name. He's actually a doctor who's active here in Houston. And he'll be talking about health freedom and medical freedom and why that's important to him as a physician. Then we'll be hearing from another doctor, Laredo Ritter, who is based in Austin, is coming out here to Houston for this event. We're really excited about that. He's the founder of EMF Nights, and his focus will be on EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, and 5G, and also how that goes against health freedom, the idea that some people could just volunteer, or just say, hey, we're going to put these towers in your community without any say to your neighborhood, and so you're going to be subject to
What if they
this.
wanted to put stuff in the water that was only in there for medicinal purposes and not to kill the bacteria, or to make sure we're safe? Because I understand some people would say, oh, don't put anything in to kill the bacteria, but that's a little different. But this, like anything that's in there, like for a medical thing, like to sedate you or to make your teeth good.
Well, we've seen people joke, or I don't know if they're jokingly, but politicians in the past say things about, maybe we should put lithium in the water to reduce suicides and things like that. That would be an example of, again, forced medication if they did that on a mandatory level where you didn't have a choice. Obviously, you have a choice, do you drink the water or not? But let's say this, in the case of water fluoridation.
You don't have a choice, you got to drink water.
Well, you got to drink water one way or the other, right? So in the city of Houston, though, when you pay your water bill, that goes specifically to, a portion of that goes to the fluoride fund, which pays the $1 million contract where they purchase hydrofluorosilicic acid from local companies and put it into the water supply. So that's another example where health freedom and medical freedom are ignored. All of those issues that we're just discussing are going to be discussed and more. So there's those three speakers. There's also Candace Messler, who is a advocate and activist here in Houston, who's going to be sharing and talking about medical kidnapping, which is something we've seen CPS taking certain people's kids and things of that sort. So lots going on with that, and a couple candidates coming out. There's going to be a really beautiful place, so I plan to be there. Check it out tomorrow from 5 to 8 at the Houston Yoga and Ayurvedic Wellness Center. It's called the Houston Health Freedom Forum.
That health freedom can go a whole different way. I just thought about, what about things, not just medicines and things, but what about like augmentations, transhumanism type things? What about like if you want to get, upgraded or whatever. And like some people don't think you should be able to get this technology, See, I mean, it keeps going. I'm just saying, when you start thinking about health and freedom, and you start thinking about maybe it's your body and maybe you should have some rights to it and things like that.
If you want to become a cyborg, you should have the freedom to do that.
There we go.
I'm just, don't make it mandatory, right? That's all. I'm always
mandatory cyborg.
Nothing should be mandatory. That's basically what it comes down to. But yeah, I see you got another event going on that you're looking at there.
Yeah, I got a couple that I was interested in. This weekend looks busy. I wanted to make sure we did talk about this because BC Binge, Critical Condition, Your Disorder. Oh, goodness, 2 days of fun out at House of J this weekend. J Fest 3, Franken Puke. Yes, El Jumbotron, Darwin's Finches. I'm actually supposed to be meeting up with some friends from Darwin's Finches this weekend, so that should be interesting. And that's going on for 2 days over there. I mean, I don't know. I haven't been to J-Fest, but that sounds like one heck of a lineup. Weekend? Yep, that's Friday and Saturday. So kicking off tonight, like right after the show, like 6 p.m. at 323 Hutchison. Don't say I didn't tell you, I got like, what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 acts per day. I got some artists out there. Infinite Mind, been a guest on the show before.
Cool.
Monster Lasers, Lost and Found. Maybe Lex Simone will be over there.
Nice.
Yep.
Maybe have to go hit it up tonight. 323 Hutchison over there on the East End.
Hey, if you go out there and you talk to people, remind them they got to make it out to September 27th and 8th to Bohemios for another big event. But also this
for the community's coming.
Yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, so there's a big music event for you for this weekend, but also Zine Fest is going on this weekend. It's not over at the Printing Museum. It's out at Lawndale Art Center. So if you don't know what Zine Fest is, I don't know what to tell you. You got comic books and magazines, self-published, items like this, and all kinds of interesting different people with ideas and such, because I feel like you can get podcasts and you can get things on YouTube, but the physical reading thing is a kind of one. It's the bookstores that I've been able to get to. I've noticed less and less mainstream magazines in general. Not to mention anything like you'll find at Zine Fest, like with real original creativity, characters that you haven't been hearing about since your grandpa's day, things like that. So there's all that going on at Zine Fest at Lawndale this weekend. So, I saw all kinds of other good things going on, but those seem to be the most prevalent.
Cool, man. Well, lots happening here in the city of Houston. Of course, if you got something going on that you want to tell us about, you can call in at 713-526-5738. We're going to start getting into the news, and of course,
we could dedicate a show to events that we think are good, but we have to pick a few. And unless you let us know about yours, yours might be one of the ones that we're sitting here looking at and we like, but we only got an hour, so we want to make sure we engage with our audience. So you're talking about news, things happening, stuff like that, Derek, Houston, Doug.
So I'm ready to go into some news, though. Let's get into this news.
Yeah, I've heard of these things like news.
Well, there's a few Houston stories I saw, and then there's definitely a Texas gun story that I think is relevant, and then I got a court case about terror watch list, and then I also
I've seen the terror watch list. Let's start local and get out. Sounds like we got a lot of the same things on our minds.
We'll cover it today here on Freethinker Radio. Again, I want to invite you guys to call in at 713-526.
Particularly in the latter half of the show.
5738, yeah.
We get through some stuff and we lay out some groundwork for some material, some content. We want to hear your views, for the articles, against the articles, for what we're saying, against what we're saying, more profound than what we're saying, et cetera, et cetera. And, don't please just wait till then because we don't have Johnny here to help us out. So
if you call in, we will answer, but we'll have to put you on hold for a few minutes till we get to the calls. But all right, let's do this. So the first one, I'm going to start right here in Houston. And it says, this is from Courthouse News, Houston DA doubles down on support for bail reform. Just came out in the last day or so. The Houston area's top prosecutor sent her chief of staff to meet with local NAACP officials Thursday to assure them she supports bail reform to keep poor misdemeanor arrestees out of jail. But she has concerns with a proposed settlement she says will endanger domestic violence victims. And this is interesting because it does have to do with the bail reform going on in the Harris County area, which has been, pretty messed up for quite some time. And I do know that Adia Jones, who's a local candidate challenging Kim Ogg in next year's district attorney race, she's been calling her out left and right for this sort of faux decriminalization, the diversion program, what we've talked about before, Micah, about the programs being funded by asset forfeiture. And now she's apparently been criticized for her stance on bail reform. But it says here, U.S. District Judge Lee Rosenthal upended Harris County's criminal justice system in April 2017 when she found its practices of using a fee schedule to set bail based on charges favor those who can afford bail and violates poor arrestees' due process and equal protection rights. Shortly after taking office in January 2017, Harris County DA Kim Ogg came out in support of the class action. She said she agreed the county's already overcrowded jail in Houston downtown should not be further crowded by people like the lead plaintiff, Miranda O'Donnell, who sued Harris County in May 2016 after she was arrested on misdemeanor charges of driving with an invalid license, and a magistrate judge set her bail at $2,500. Pretty crazy. O'Donnell, 25, says her detention jeopardized a new restaurant job she needed to take care of her young daughter. She sued all of 16 county criminal judges and 5 magistrate judges who set bond at probable cause hearings. The county lost despite spending $10 million on outside counsel, right? So that's a pretty historic lawsuit this woman was able to get herself behind. And it says after Democrats in November 2018 elections swept out of office the 14 Republican judges who were defending this fee schedule bail system in the courts, the new judges adopted new bail rules in January they took from an injunction Rosenthal had imposed in the case. So we're basically seeing the development of new procedures on how bail should be handled, and that's not going to target poor folks and people of color. And Kim Ogg had originally been supportive of it, but now it seems like she might be being more hesitant, so people are being critical of her. But it says under the new rules, all misdemeanor arrestees must be released on personal recognizance bonds with no upfront fee required as soon as practical, and only certain groups of people, those arrested for violating protective orders, assaulting a family member, or not showing up for court or for DWIs, can be held longer than 48 hours for a bail hearing before a criminal court judge. Because that's the thing. If you've ever been arrested in the county for whether misdemeanor, like they're saying here, misdemeanor, small things like not like an expired license or something, if you end up getting arrested and going to jail, you can spend 2 whole days behind that, 48 hours, and lose your job, lose all this kind of stuff, and they charge you a ridiculous amount of money, and it's just, I mean, it's criminal itself. The rules also include a proposed settlement.
It's disruptive to the system. Think how many jobs are affected by someone being gone for 2 days for maybe driving without a license, expired license, or something like that, or, which they can arrest you for. So, I mean, think about it. Yeah, it's criminal, and it's horrible in the way it affects each individual that's stuck in there for 2 days, and they may lose their job, and their kids may be taken by CPS, et cetera, et cetera. That is absolutely horrible. But think about it as a whole, because, sometimes some people, they get thinking about an individual and it's not them and they don't care. But think about the whole here. Think about all the businesses affected by all the misdemeanor people. How many people does that jail hold? And, the city jail, the county jail, all the little jails, Jersey Village, et cetera, et cetera. How many people do these hold? These aren't prisons. This isn't designed for, what do you call it? Helping people, rehabilitation, anything like that. That's this is, look, you got caught with too many traffic warrants, or some dumb stuff like that. And think jobs across this city are being affected this way. These people are losing productivity. Their employers are losing productivity. Just all kinds of ways. I just wanted to go a little different direction with it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just wrap this up here. So to sort of distinguish what exactly. So as I said, there's this court case going on. A woman won a $10 million settlement. They rewrote the rules for the bail reform system. Kim Ogg, the current district attorney, originally supportive, now is kind of walking back that a little bit. But this is what she said specifically. It says that Ogg let judges says that the settlement from the recent judge settlement would let judges excuse any defendant from ever having to appear in court and allow defendants who know how to work the system to keep rescheduling hearings and, quote, go an indefinite period without attending court. Her chief of staff laid out these concerns Thursday before the NAAC officials at Houston's headquarters. Her chief of staff said there are currently according to them, no low-level offenders in Harris County Jail. So they're saying, hey, look, we've already taken care of that by stop arresting people for weed and things like that. But they're saying, the DA's office is saying, the dangers of the new system are exemplified by Alex Guardo. A judge released him, 22 years old, on a personal recognizance bond. And what that means is they just let you go. You promised. What
was he arrested for?
You promised to appear in court. So listen, this guy was 22. He was arrested after being charged with misdemeanor assault on his pregnant wife, and he was allowed to go on a personal recognizance bond. And then, while he was out, even though he was given a protective order to stay away from his wife, he allegedly is accused now of stabbing her 20 times and killing her on August 3rd. So Kim Ogg's office is saying these are the type of people who are going to take advantage of the system. And, it depends. Some people will buy the argument, some don't. Go. And, that's kind of what it comes down to.
Let's break it apart.
Go for it.
Well, I just think about it, man, because now you got a person with assault. Is like all the misdemeanors the same? Some have a victim. Why
Yeah,
would
exactly.
why would a misdemeanor with a victim be the same as perhaps too many traffic tickets? Why would you treat these the same? Like to make people think of them as the same? To make anybody think that, look, if we don't lock these people up, they could kill someone? Really?
Well, what they're trying to do here is say that because of their diversion program with not arresting people for cannabis, or trying to reduce that, the jail is no longer filled with low-level offenders, or at least that's what they claim.
So you have room for people with assault.
So she's saying instead, people like this guy who know how to game the system, but I don't think he gamed the system in this case. It seems like the judge gave him this recognizance bond, so it would be up to a judge. And I guess that's what their concerns. They're saying like judges will knowingly or unwittingly give people personal recognizance bonds, and they'll get out and do things like that. But I think what you're saying is true. Like, judges shouldn't just treat everybody the same across the board. If you got one person who's in there for assaulting his pregnant wife, it's probably different than somebody who's in there.
If they were all the same, we wouldn't need a
warrant,
judge. If they were all the same, we wouldn't need a judge.
So you got
it could just be a system,
judges.
Right? You see what I'm saying? I mean, it would be like, okay, 5 fingers, okay, 5 fingers, okay, 5 fingers. But see, they're not all the same. People aren't all the same for one, but the crimes aren't the same, and that's the thing here. I just don't see that. I think the biggest thing, and maybe we should just move on after this story, but I think the biggest thing we've got here is we've got crimes with a victim. Why would you treat a crime that has a victim the same as a victimless crime? As far as if you're worried about people getting out there and hurting other people and doing more damage to society,
Yeah. Well, that's where we're standing on that. We're going to continue to monitor the situation. As I said, for those who are interested, there is a challenger to Kim Ogg, who, this is not an endorsement, just letting you know who's out there. Audia Jones, Audia. I've been seeing her around town, and she's talking about bail reform. She's talking about decriminalizing, ending the drug war, and lots of stuff. So, if you want to be engaged in that way and know what your choices are, look that up. One story I want to mention, this will be the last one I'll throw it your way, Micah. This is a Texas one. And you want to talk guns? Well,
I think I might have seen this one. This guy, go on.
Texas governor turns to executive orders to stop shootings. This is just reported yesterday. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed 8 executive orders on Thursday in effort to combat mass shootings after 2 recent shootings in El Paso and Odessa. One thing I want to say before I get into the details of this, I think that either way, probably both sides will have something to complain about. And what I mean by is those who are like, no, there should be no attempt at regulating or restricting firearms or anything, especially in Texas, and those who want them to do something. I think one side will probably think they're doing too much or shouldn't do anything. The other side is probably going to say it's not enough, based on what I'm seeing here. And so let's just talk about what are these executive orders. These executive orders by Texas governor focus on creating a better link between citizen reports of potentially dangerous individuals and the Texas Suspicious Activity Reporting Network, as well as additional officer training and a public awareness campaign. So public awareness campaign, more training, and then a better link between citizens trying to report dangerous individuals and the Texas Suspicious Activity Report Network. So those are the 3 main steps. It says the first order requires the Texas DPS, Department of Public Safety, to, within 30 days, quote, develop standardized intake questions that can be used by all Texas law enforcement agencies to better identify whether a person calling the agency has information that should be reported to the reporting network. And another executive order will give the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement 60 days to create law enforcement training on how to implement the new reporting process. 2 other orders direct the DPS to create public awareness campaigns for the general public and school populations to better inform citizens on suspicious activity reporting process and how to submit such a report. One other executive order would bring together law enforcement, and this one is probably the most worrisome to me, would bring together law enforcement, mental health professionals, and school districts to conduct threat assessments in various communities. In order to identify threats online, a separate order would give state agencies, so it says in order to identify threats online, a separate order would give state agencies the green light to hire more monitoring staff for social media and other online platforms. Finally, the last order would require the Texas counties to submit Texas counties to submit at least 90% of all convictions into the DPS Criminal Justice Information System within 7 days starting January 1st, 2020. So that final executive order is basically trying to seek what they're seeing as the failure of, for example, in El Paso, the alleged shooter, his mother called local and federal officials regarding concerns about her son and his guns, but there was some sort of information gap, as Greg Abbott called it. And so that executive order is trying to address that and make it easier to link law enforcement systems together and to get complaints. And Greg Abbott said in a statement, Texas must achieve several objectives to protect our communities and our residents from mass shootings. One of those objectives is to marshal law enforcement resources to stop violent criminals before they commit mass murders, while also safeguarding the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding Texas. He did not specify how much funding would be allotted to the orders, and it says the orders stop short, thankfully, of enforcement procedures for red flag laws, which allow state officials to temporarily seize an individual's firearms if someone close to them submits a report to indicate a threat. Not just seize their firearms, potentially arrest them and take them and put them in a cage for a certain period of time, or put them under, a mental health evaluation.
Yeah, not by any crime of theirs based on, some
suspicions.
Yeah.
So it
Hearsay.
says Abbott's orders focus on prevention procedures but avoid a commitment to firearm seizures. And that's why I'm saying, Micah, that I think some folks will probably think it doesn't go far enough because he's not doing red flag laws, and others are, be worried where is this going to lead? But that's where it's at. Texas governor, no law passed, no vote by you, just 8 executive orders to create new departments, allocate funds for this, do more training, create this suspicious network. And maybe that's needed. I don't know. I don't know the perfect solution, but every time we give them more and more powers, it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, we definitely got more gun articles coming up. I got a couple more things in Texas that I don't want to spend too much time on. We got a horrible one here. A Texas nursing assistant sentenced to 15 years in prison for sexually assaulting unconscious patients. Just in case, it's just, you might not think of it as being an authority thing, but look at it. You're entrusting your loved ones with this 53-year-old gentleman. And it turns out that's what's happening. It turns out that he was performing sex acts on them without their consent as they drifted in and out of consciousness. Wow. What a horrible situation, right? Goodness gracious. But, yep. And that's right over there. He worked at different places, and Houston's Bend Taub, Kingwood Medical Center. So if you ever, you might have been drifting in and out of consciousness at a hospital and thought something was happening. It wasn't just you, maybe. Sacred Oak Medical Center, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, St. Jude's ambulance. You don't want to be drifting in and out on an ambulance.
Is that where this guy worked?
Yep, different things. And it's not, I'm laughing a little bit because, it's an awkward thing, right? And, we do know the schools are back in session, and we've seen a lot of this over at, where school people are, violating individuals, but this one's a little different, and it's definitely one that's not suspected. But now back to school. Let's talk about school. Yeah, it turns out that one thing I didn't know that everybody seems to be angry about is that the school buses are having severe problems. That sounds like the fleet just isn't being managed well or something. I didn't know if you knew about this. I think if we don't have kids in school in HISD, you might not know about it. Or if your kids are lucky, you may not have had a problem bus yet. But several parents have reached out in regards to school buses not picking up their children because it happened after the news started interviewing people because a grandmother experienced an address mix-up with HISD and a little kid got sent somewhere totally wrong. You can imagine the concern. So it turns out that a 12-year-old was missing school because ISD didn't bother to pick him up. All kinds of other situations like that. So if you have been having bus concerns, you might not be alone. And if you've been being quiet about it, it might not be time to be quiet anymore. Those are taxes that you're paying and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, yep, thought I'd mention that. So got one other school article that I didn't get too far into, so I'm not sure where all we're going with it, but just under 209,000 students returned to HISD, and that's a lot of kids, right? 250,000 kids practically. And I know we have a lot of other school districts, that are in this area. It's start of new year, and they believe there'll be dramatic changes for one of the largest school districts in the nation. It's because there's a potential takeover by the state because the district's accountability ratings, 21 of its 280 schools have received a failing grade by the TEA. Wheatley High School was among them. Despite that, the school's overall average rating is a B. The larger concern by the state involves the governance of the district by its elected school board. Several members are being investigated by the state for allegedly violating an open meeting law as well as business rules. Several Houston legislators have called for the board's replacement, and a new board will be elected in November. The possibility that the state may appoint one of its own is still there. And that was, I will say that the schools is something that came up a little bit during the mayoral forum. Sounds like there's some severe problems with HISD. Even so, interim HISD superintendent Dr. Granita Lathan has predicted a great school year ahead for students. And we'll see, So I just wanted to make sure we did mention some of the things going on. And I think that's about
Lots happening in the city.
37 were arrested in sex trafficking.
Here in Houston?
Bust in Houston, yeah. It took a
Good.
just recent one. Took over, what do you call it, a 6-day sting. Separated dozens of human trafficking victims from their abusers and provided resources to rebuild their lives. The Human Trafficking Awareness, let's see, where is this? Rescue Alliance. Operation Independence ran from July 29th to August 3rd, pooled resources from nearly 24 agencies and social service organizations. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said 37 arrests were made, including 32 women and 5 men.
Crazy stuff, man. And this is the reality of what happened in the city of Houston. We live in this giant metropolis. People love our diversity and love everything going on, and sometimes it might be, easy to forget the other realities that exist sometimes in the shadows right around us.
Yeah.
Well, I got a song pulled up if you want to go to some music, Micah.
Let's hear some music.
All right, we're going to go to some music, and we're going to hear Craze music. Enjoy this. We'll come back with some more news and take your calls. This is 90.1 KPFT Houston, Free Thinker Radio.
That's what you think.
Yeah, check this out. All right. I hope you enjoyed that.
I did.
Welcome back to Freethinker Radio.
Oh, you weren't talking to me.
KPFT Houston. I was talking to you, but I know you enjoy it.
All right. I'm glad y'all are listening. I'm glad y'all are having a good time
What's
out
that
there.
phone number, Mike, if we want to get
713-526-5738, and we see the calls coming through. I'm going to process
Mike is going to handle that because I'm not good at that. But, yeah, if you want to call in to ask what our music we were jamming or any suggestions, we'll see what these two callers got. Also, if you want to talk about Texas and red flag laws, gun laws, bail reform, Mike has been covering lots of issues. I know I got a couple more stories. We're going to talk about 5G lawsuits here in Texas and around the country. We're also going to talk about a federal judge finding that the FBI's terror watch list, is unconstitutional. So lots of news coming up in the next 15 minutes or so we got left on this show. So, all right, just hang on a moment. We're going to bring on some callers. And I think Mike is getting that figured out. And, yeah, seems like we got some people ready to talk to us. No? All right. Well, if you want to call in, 713-526-5738. I'm going to go ahead and get into this story while Mike is taking care of that. So I was doing research last night about 5G. Of course, you guys know on this show that we've been following the 5G story in Houston and around the country and around the world, really, where people are putting up resistance to 5G because they're concerned about health problems, or they're worried about privacy issues, the surveillance issues, or they're also concerned, like many people are, about the loss of local power concerns and things of that sort. So there's multiple angles that are taking place here, and I was doing research on that, and I actually found a couple of articles around spring and fall of 2018. You know, there really was some big pushback against the whole 5G situation, and there's actually an ongoing lawsuit. I didn't know about this till maybe a week or two ago. There's actually 12 cities, I think, maybe 12 counties, actually cities, that have sued the state of Texas and also, I believe, the FCC. There's a couple different lawsuits going on, basically saying that their 5G rule, which they passed, I found the legislation yesterday, it was called State Bill 1004 from 2017, which started taking away local right-of-way and local power on the rollout of 5G and small cells and cell towers and all this stuff. And so, as I've told you guys over the past months, we know that Mayor Turner, Sylvester Turner, is the 5G wireless champion. So he's not interested in having these conversations and asking these questions that we are raising and that we are bringing up to the table. So there are apparently enough concerns that city attorneys across the state of Texas thought that it was worth filing a lawsuit. Wow, imagine that. It's not just crazy people on YouTube or crazy people at city council. There are legitimate people in positions of government in the state of Texas who said, you know what, this is taking away so much power from us. This is ridiculous. We can't have this. So one of these men leading the charge is Kevin Pagan, and I'm trying to get him on the show soon. He is the city attorney in the city of McAllen, Texas, down by the border. And there's this article, which I found last night, is titled "The Future of 5G, The Bitter Battle for Local Control." Cities across the country are staring down the barrel of technological progress. In some cases, the loss of local authority has left them with few options as to how things happen in their jurisdictions. And this article is way too long to get into it now. There's another one out there that I just found on the Christian Science Monitor. It says, cities argue 5G internet rollout laws violate property rights. So my point here with bringing this stuff up is that there's a lot of legal battles going on. The FCC says that their authority overrides any local authorities. So when they passed their rule in October 2018, it basically, even if, it overrode any, according to them, any local ordinances like in Portland and like other places. So you got localities who actually have some backbone and standing up for what their people want, filing lawsuits against the FCC. Or vice versa, you have the CTIA and the Verizon and those companies suing the cities. And then you also have local here to Texas. You have 12 different cities and city attorneys filing a lawsuit against the state of Texas for the law that they passed and its violation of property rights. So all of this is going on in the background. So if you have questions about 5G, whether they be health, whether they be privacy, whether they be related to this local power issue, just know that you're not alone, that there are people who are legitimately questioning these things and asking these questions. I do want to mention one other thing on that topic, and then I'll throw it back to you, Micah, is there is a free event taking place all this weekend. It's an online event. It's called the 5G Crisis and Awareness Summit, and it is, it's basically just plenty of talks. It's actually a 7-day event, but they're letting it go free, encore, free weekend starting right now. You can go to the5gsummit.com. The 5G as in the number 5, the letter G, summit.com. And you just got to register for free. And check it out. There's all kinds of talks. Myself, I did a short talk on building local community to resist 5G, and it's literally 50 plus talks from Dr. Martin Paul, who we've interviewed here, from Dr. Deborah Davis, Sharon Goldberg, and some of the guests that we've had on the show, all about 5G, all about this. So I recommend checking that out, the 5gsummit.com. It's a really cool online event that you can take part in. But I just wanted to raise your awareness as I learn more about how much resistance there has been to 5G, despite it not being discussed in the local media, despite it barely being discussed in local politics or even any kind of politics. But all right, Michael, we got a caller on the line?
We do. We got someone who's calling in regarding guns, etc. So.
Cool. Let's talk about it. Who do we got on the line, and what's on your mind?
Hi, my name is Evan Roberts. I'm from the UK, but I live in Houston for 4 years now.
All right. What's on your mind, man?
Well, I'm a conservative thinker. Usually I have conservative views. But on guns, I have like a double mind, like I'm sure a lot of conservatives do right now. Being from the UK, we don't have any guns. And therefore, like, there's not really many gun deaths. Like, you never really hear about a gun shooting ever in the UK. Like, it's, like, very rare. If someone kills anybody, they have to use a knife or, you know, it's like physical violence, so throttling or whatever, you know, strangling, whatever. But obviously that's a big problem here in America, like with gun violence and things. But I kind of try not to hold like a very biased political view on it, because being conservative, I want to. But I think like automatics and things are exaggerated. But I do see some points in favor of having gun rights. For instance, if you have gun rights for the whole population of a state, it's pretty much impossible to do it for a foreign invasion, land invasion anyway. I mean, it is a big country to defend.
Yeah.
The second reason, I think, is also the kind of balance of power from the state having power over the people and the people having guns.
Absolutely.
If there's any serious abuse of power, and that's why there's a stand-up between the state and the people, you know, because the Texas people especially don't like any state control, and it's almost an independent country at one point. So I can understand the pride and also the, like, hey, you know, if you do mess up big time, and also the increase in career politicians and things that makes people very wary of like giving too much power to the government, because you got all these growing career politicians, like you had Barack Obama, you know, now he's like huge Netflix and author, and you know, even Clinton, you know, he's got serious money from politics. But you know, it also happens on the right as well.
Certainly.
So I think people having power is also a good thing. I'm in two minds, to be honest.
It sounds like, you know, like many issues, you're recognizing it's not simple and it's not easy to just take one side script, and that you have to think for yourself and, you know, come to some understanding. So I definitely appreciate that. And it's a little arduous, especially on an issue like this where you're torn one way and you're torn another way, because, you know, nobody wants shootings. But at the same time, you brought up good points for why we have guns, why guns even exist in the first place, you know.
Yeah.
And then also we saw just recently, and I was looking this over, that the gun that was used just in Texas recently was illegally manufactured and sold to a gentleman who was already forbidden to have guns. So it's hard to fully understand what laws can do here. You know, that's assuming that people don't even have, you know, I know America's an anomaly. Most nations have no problem with gun control, but in America and I think just a couple other nations, it's thought of as a human right, you know. So I think that's one of the reasons that there's a problem with it. Plus, it seems like it's one of these things that the solutions the politicians sell fall into two camps on this one more than anything. And being so, it makes the two people, or makes people not be able to talk to each other. People who might be concerned about civil liberties and, you know, the ability to defend the land, defend themselves, or stop an oppressive government, God forbid something like that monstrosity ever happen, aren't talking to people who are concerned about the shootings, because they're talking past each other. You know what I mean? They hear the person who's concerned about the shootings as saying, hey, we're coming to take your guns, you know, and so they just yell at each other and we don't do anything. So I know it's a little long-winded, but I think it's kind of part of the problem and kind of why thinking people like yourself are having a little bit more trouble fitting this one in a box. And I really want to...
Let's imagine like right now, like Target and all those companies are trying to get people to not take guns to their stores. Like, so you're a law-abiding citizen who wants to protect the rights of other good people. And you think, oh, I don't want to break those laws, so I won't take my gun into Target or whatever. What if that's the opposite of what should be happening in a way, because the guy is going to go in with a gun. This guy doesn't care. He wants to kill people. And you're telling all the people that would be law-abiding citizens not to take a gun in.
Well,
exactly. The people being shot innocently.
These shootings keep happening. Sense. A lot of them are happening at schools, probably for that same reason. They're gun-free zones.
Well, we appreciate your call. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, and you definitely have some cogent points. We're here every Friday. If you want to continue listening, every Friday, 3 to 4, Free Thinker Radio. Appreciate your call.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, you have a good one.
Thank you.
Well, we definitely
Micah.
appreciate the viewpoints. He didn't have a simple answer. He had, some troubles. He said he had these different points of views on it, and we definitely appreciate that. Often we get people called with a heated point this way or that way. I did have some calls earlier, mostly people thanking us for the work we do here. If you want to thank KPFT for the work that's done here and the ability to keep community radio, commercial-free radio, music, ideas, your ideas, going for another 40 years, please don't forget to find a way to factor it into your giving campaign, whatever that may be.
Even when we're not doing the fund drive, you can always give to KPFT at kpft.org and let them know that you're supporting because you love Free Thinker Radio and whatever other programs that you like on KPFT. I want to get into another story, and I think Mike has got one more as we start to wrap up. We just got the last couple minutes here. If you got anything to say, 713-526-5738. But one that I'm just going to touch on briefly and then hand it off to Micah, and you got any calls or whatever, then we'll take those. But Micah, guess what?
What?
The terror watch list is
for
unconstitutional.
I saw that, and
Did you need a judge to tell you that?
No, I didn't need a judge, and I don't need them to tell me not to do heroin. But it's really interesting. How many years after its finding?
I mean, it started after 9/11.
Yeah,
I mean, probably before then. But so it says a government watch list that has more than 1 million people identified as quote known or suspected terrorists, which you don't know about, and you wouldn't know if you're on it, has violated the constitutional rights of those. Well, you might find out. It violates the constitutional rights of those placed on it, said a federal judge on Wednesday. So this is a brand new ruling. U.S. District Judge Anthony Trenga on Wednesday said in his summary judgment to nearly 24 Muslim U.S. citizens who challenged the watch list with the help of the Council on American Islamic Relations. The judge is seeking additional legal briefs before deciding what remedy to impose. So we don't know what it means yet, but he has said, okay, this is unconstitutional. The plaintiffs said they were wrongly placed on the list and that the government's process for adding names is overbroad and riddled with errors. This watch list is disseminated to a variety of government departments, foreign governments, and police agencies. Probably the FBI field office here in Houston or, the Houston Police Department. The FBI declined to comment on the ruling on Wednesday. In court, the FBI's lawyers argued that the difficulties suffered by the plaintiffs pale in comparison to the government's interests in combating terrorism. So any difficulties the people face is, irrelevant to the battle against terrorism that the government wages in their view. And an attorney for the plaintiffs said the ruling was a victory. He said he will ask the judge to severely curtail how the government compiles and uses its list. Quote, innocent people should be beyond the reach of the watch list, and we think that's what the Constitution requires. He said that there has been significant litigation over the no-fly list, which forced the government to improve the process of people seeking to clear their name from the no-fly list. But he said this is the first broad attack on the government's use of a terror watch list. And the judge wrote in his 31-page ruling that the case, quote, presents unsettled issues. Yes, maybe the judge now is fully realizing almost 20 years after 9/11 that these sort of things are illegal, unconstitutional. But these practices continue to happen, and of course they have been escalated since after 9/11. The watch list has grown over the years. It is officially known as the terrorist screening database maintained by the FBI and various federal agencies. Custom officers have access to the list to check people coming to the country at border crossings, and aviation officials use the database to help form the no-fly list. 1.16 million people as of June 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. So by listening to the show, you might be on the FBI's terror watch list, unfortunately, just because when you talk about freedom, sometimes that gets labeled you as an extremist. Did you notice that, Micah?
I've seen these sort of things and heard of them. I thought it was interesting. They say that all these, I was just kind of reading some crime stats in the UK, and the number of offenses involving a knife or bladed instrument that have been recorded by cops in the year of 2018 was at a 7-year high, up 40,000. It's talking about all these, 7-year high, all these sort of, different murders in New York, comparing it to London and New York, comparing the two. And it's just kind of not what you'd expect. It does sound like there is a At sometimes, London has a higher murder rate than New York in particular months.
Stabbings, they have a lot of stabbings.
Yeah, it's in other months. New York is different, yet overall for 2017, homicide rate per 100,000 population, and this excludes terror on either side, stood at 1.2 in London and 3.4 in New York. So, yeah.
Interesting. Well, we're all wrapping up here. Michael, you got anything else to cover?
Oh, I got all kinds of craziness. I mean, we're getting near the end, but some of these crazy headlines are just too much. And we are getting near the end.
We got a song ready?
I've got all kinds of things. I'm sorry. I wanted to mention that I saw this thing that these hospital treating patients and then suing them. More than 1 in 4 consumers in 2018 were reported to credit bureaus over unpaid debt, according to Consumer Credit Protection Bureau. More than half of those reports involve medical bills. How do you like that? You know, an eighth of the people in the country, right? An eighth of the consumers. One survey of women with breast cancer found that a third of those with health insurance had been referred to bill collectors. So think about that, with insurance, and still ended up with bill collectors. And, you know, in this article from MSN, they talk about this woman that basically lost her car because they garnished her wages and was basically almost lost everything. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. I thought this other one that I read out there was pretty interesting. Supreme Court ruled that prosecutors have a constitutional responsibility to share information favorable to the defense, including law enforcement officers with credibility issues. It's often called the Brady Rule. Wrongdoings that can land an officer or on so-called Brady list or a database include lying on a police report, excessive force, bigoted comments, or crimes such as drunken driving or domestic violence. Turns out that criminal justice reform is turning to a list of problem officers. So that might be a little new take. And I got a couple of economic news ones. Despite hinting at rate cuts and the fact that 69% of the chief financial officers that were looked at by Duke University and CFO Global Business Outlook, which was published in June, the Fed does not expect a recession next year, though 69% of those CFOs do. Judge has also ruled, you might find this one interesting, more conspiracy. Federal judge said investors may sue 5 big banks for conspiring to rig prices on hundreds of billions
less than a minute
of dollars in bonds issued by mortgage financiers Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac over 7 years.
So much to cover, so little time. Do listen to us on Mondays from 4 to 6 p.m. on the HD2 dial, which can be found at kpft.org/listen if you want to get the full news and everything. We are here on Fridays from 3 to 4, and we're pretty much out of here for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Freethinker Radio on 90.1 KPFT Houston.